So I've scribbled down a few bits and pieces that I took away from each of the presentations that we had over the day, and then I've got a couple of points to talk about on the closing. So one of the things that I really found interesting, and I enjoyed the fact that we had two investors to open up the discussion. So we were getting a very different perspective, one from Dama here in London, one from Spencer and his perspective in Silicon Valley. And, you know, it was interesting to see the kind of compare and contrast. But what I loved about both of them was that they said, particularly in the early stages, it's all about the entrepreneur. And this is something that I've found, and this is something that I always advise clients on as well, especially in the early stage, where really what the investor is investing in is belief in you as the entrepreneur, belief in your team, belief in your ability as human beings to attach to deal with what the challenges are that you face. And so, you know, more human, as Emma's company is called. I mean, that's what it's all about. It's that human angle. And the number of times I see people prepare pitch decks and they don't even have a slide in there about the team, or it's in the appendix or something like that. And what I often advise clients is that actually the team should be the second or third slide in your deck, because really, and we heard it today from Spencer and Dama, that's what the entrepreneurs are investing in, especially in the early days, you know. And Spencer talked about their early investment in Zoom. And by the way, his fund invested in Zoom at 11 cents a share. They're now trading at $285 a share. So they've done quite well out of that one. But, you know, he talked about the founder of Zoom and said, you know, we know the product's not quite right here, but we trust this person. We believe in this person, and we know that they'll find the way. And I just really want to stress that anyone who's out there thinking about it, make sure you pick up about yourself, about your team, and, you know, don't be shy. Don't be overly British and think, oh no, we mustn't talk about ourselves. A couple of other things that I really liked from what Spencer was talking about, where he talked about the clarity of the vision, and he gave the example of Tesla, and he said, you know, and this is true if anyone's studied Elon Musk. Elon Musk always knew that Tesla would really take off when they could sell millions and millions of mid-priced sedans. But they also knew that in order to do that, they had to start by building the Roadster and finding the fanatics who were willing to pay, you know, 150 grand to buy this electric Roadster. They knew it wasn't going to be a mass market, but they had so many of the core production things that they had to sort out, and they did that effectively through the funding from what they sold on the Roadster. They then said, okay, the Roadster has proven those core things. Let's now look at building an expensive car, which was the Model S and the Model X, and try and bring that to a wider community. And then what I thought was Musk's absolute masterstroke was when he launched the Model 3, he did a great big show, much like Steve Jobs used to do at Apple. He did a great big show and presented the Model 3 and then said, it's not going to be built for another year, but if you'd like to put down a $3,000 deposit, you will get one of the first ones as they roll off the production line. More than 100,000 people put down a $3,000 deposit, which gave him all the money he needed to go out and build the factories and build the Model 3. And it is today widely recognized as one of the most successful electric cars on the market. And Tesla is one of the most valuable companies out there. I'm not sure if it is anymore, but there was a point in time, I think earlier this year, when Tesla was worth more than all of the other major car companies in the world combined. So I think, you know, that clarity over the vision and knowing where you're going, and then using that story to work backwards as Spencer presented it, I thought was great. The other key thing from Spencer, sorry, two more from Spencer. he talked about keep your deal structure clean. And I can't stress this enough. So many entrepreneurs I see get into different classes of shares and different structures of things. And, you know, I've seen people going out, and I was talking to one prospective client recently, and it was still the three founders, and they had 6 classes of shares. And it was just, it confuses everything. It makes it harder to achieve anything. And when you get in, without going into the details of the law, but when you're having to make major decision and you have multiple classes of shares, each class of shares has to vote in favor of it, or the decision sometimes won't go through. So just keep your structure as clean as you possibly can. And then the last thing Spencer talked about, which links back to what I was saying in my opening address and links a little bit to what Emma was saying, is you need to catch someone's attention. So Spencer talked about the fact that in the last year, they had 500 pitch decks. They actually saw somewhere between 50 and 75%. 50 and 75 companies. So they actually met with 10 to 15%, and they made 12 investments. So that's 2.4% of the total number of things that the pitch decks that they had. As I said in my opening remarks, I was talking to the senior partner of a mid-sized London VC a couple of weeks ago, and in the last 12 months, they had received over 1,000 decks, and they made 16 investments. It's a numbers game. It's hard work, but you got to stick with it. And you got to know that you're going to get a lot of rejections. You're going to get a lot of cases where not even you don't get a rejection, you just don't even get a reply. And, you know, you might say, oh, that's rude, that's terrible, whatever. It is what it is. You just have to understand that. So when you're out there looking for money, don't let that drag you down. It's a tough numbers game. There is a wall of money, but there are a load of people going after it. Geeta picked up on one of my favorite points that I've also touched on in the discussions with Laura, where she said, you know, you just need money to grow sometimes. And it's true. Really fast growth absolutely sucks in cash. Geeta also had one of my favorite lines of the day where she said, the kids are still alive, which I thought was great. And it was a very entertaining and interesting and high-paced talk that Geeta gave us. And then Zareen, when she was talking about the huge support of her customers and addressing the mindset of discrimination. And again, I think, you know, that's something that this is what we're all about at Funding Focus, is addressing that uneven playing field. And what is the mindset that's behind it, and what can we do to pick that up? And again, I'll refer to what I was talking about in my opening remarks from the research that Dana Kaunza did, Dana from London Business School, who did her PhD at Columbia, and the issue of promotional questions versus preventive questions. And no matter what question you're asked, if you can respond in a promotional way, you will be much, much more likely to succeed in your investment. And then we had Laura talking about the kind of the other way around of doing the journey. So many angels start life as successful entrepreneurs, but Laura started life as an angel and went round. But I loved her tips, you know, ask for help. And it's interesting, you know, when we're little kids, we don't think about asking for help, but somehow, somewhere in our conditioning as we grow up, we start to think, oh, it's not good to ask for help. And we couldn't be more wrong. We couldn't be more wrong. And, you know, as Laura said, lose the fear, and the benefit of asking for help comes back much, much more than you could ever possibly imagine. And I see Emma nodding her head there. And yeah, absolutely. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I love Laura's comment about slow and steady versus exponential growth. And that was where I was talking about how growth devours cash. But it's really interesting because when you're in a VC funded scenario, you'll often find yourself under huge pressure to be going after that exponential growth, which leads quite nicely into the last of Laura's points, which is that not all businesses are investable. And I don't 100% agree with that sentiment, but I do agree that not all businesses are attractive to venture capitalists. And that's something that I'm working on with my team to try and figure out how can we find an alternative to that. And then Emma, you know, loved that she said wasn't really set up to be an entrepreneur. I wrote JFDI, just fucking do it. And again, she talked about the lack of the feedback loop. And again, it's the same thing. It's, you know, it's the 1,000 pitch decks leading to 16 investments, or it's the 500 pitch decks leading to 12 investments. And whether you think it's rude or not that they don't get back to you, it happens. It's kind of like the sale process. You know, you get a lot of no's or non-responses. Embrace the ones that come back to you and say no, and learn from them. And one of the things that I do with clients is whenever I get a response from anyone saying, I've looked at your deck, thanks so much, but it's not really what we're interested in. The first thing I do is I email them back. I thank them for coming back to me. And I ask them, is there anyone else they think I should talk to? And the number of times I've been given a lead that's led to a successful funding round. So absolutely don't hesitate to reach out when you do get those responses, and, you know, thank them for taking the time. And finally, Emma's point about women make great founders. I didn't talk about it earlier on, but I have talked about it many times before. There was a great piece of research conducted by Boston Consulting Group. I think it was in 2017. And they looked at over 500 companies that had been through one of the accelerator programs and had successfully raised funding. And they found that female-led firms generated 2.5 times as much revenue per dollar invested as male-led firms. 2.5 times as much. So, you know, there's a huge compelling set of economics behind this. So that's kind of my recap of the day. I have two other things that I want to tell you about. The first one is, as I mentioned in my opening address, so we've run our Explore Introduction to Finance and Fundraising course, and our third cohort of that will be kicking off in January. We're going to be running a webinar that will tell you all about that on the 15th of December. So if you're interested in that, please just put webinar into the chat, and we'll reach out to you and give you more details on that. And finally, I'd like to say to everyone, and this is really, really exciting news. Save the date. Please open your diaries now and save the date. Thursday, the 10th of March, 2020. We are going to be back live at the London Stock Exchange. I've been liaising with contacts there. We were trying to run this event live, but with all of the COP26 things going on and the normal reporting season and stuff, the stock exchange just didn't have the ability and space to fit us in. But I was talking to a new person at the stock exchange, and she said, oh, this sounds really great. They've changed some of the rules, so I have to put this up the chain of command. It went all the way to the stock exchange's head of diversity and inclusion, who absolutely loved what we are doing and has invited us. So next year, in the week from the 7th to 11th of March, that's the week that includes International Women's Day, and the London Stock Exchange is putting on 5 days of events, and we have been given a half day to bring Funding Focus back live at the London Stock Exchange. So please put the date in your diary now, Thursday, the 10th of March. It'll be an afternoon event just like today's. It'll be live in person if you're in London, and it will be streamed around the world through various technologies. We've got to work with them. The stock exchange has their own proprietary technology, but it's only a one-way system, so we can't get messages back. So we're looking into how we manage that. But really, really excited to be back there. And I will now open the floor to anyone who would like to ask anything or raise a point. Jimmy had to zip off. That's great. Several people saying webinars. Olivia, woohoo. Yes, Olivia, you were there at the first one, so it'll be great to have you back. So please, folks, the floor is open. Feel free to either unmute yourself and ask a question or put it in the chat.
Hi, David. Sarah here.
Hi, Sarah. Nice to see you.
That was such a brilliant session this afternoon. Thank you so much. I really, really enjoyed it. I'm going to ask a question now. I think I know what the answer is, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is there a quick fix here, or is it just a slog to get the funding? So is there anything that you can do to speed things up in your mind?
I don't think there's a quick fix because we're dealing with structural and societal problems. But as you know, I've committed that I'm going to do everything I can to address them. It's going to take time. I am working on a few other quite big things. I'm not at liberty to share the details of them yet, but you know, kind of a trust me and watch this space. But no, I don't think there's a quick fix, because as I say, these are structural and societal issues that need to be addressed and changed. And you know, all you have to do is look back 115 years to the beginning of the suffragette movement, and how long did it take before there was universal suffrage? You know, I mean, I think in the UK it was 15 years before the first women were allowed to vote, but they were only allowed to vote if they owned land. You know, and then it was another 5 or 6 years before it was opened universally. And like I for those of you who know my background, I lived in Switzerland for 6 years, from the mid 80s until the early 90s. And there were 2 cantons in Switzerland that had only allowed women to vote in the last 10 years. So it's, you know, it's shocking to see how backwards some of those things are, and those things will take time. So sadly, no. What I would say, and it's been touched on by a couple of our guests today, is do look at alternative sources of funding, do look at grants. Once you've got a business that's starting to generate revenue, there's a growing number of people who will lend you money against your future revenue stream. So you're not having to sell any equity in the company. I've not looked at them in detail, so I don't know what the terms are. Also, I would say for anyone who's in the UK, and this is a UK scheme, the recovery loan scheme, the Chancellor has recently announced that that's been extended until the 31st of March. There are a few slight changes to the terms and conditions on that, but basically it's a loan scheme that will help businesses that have been affected by COVID. So you could say, look, I launched my business and then all of a sudden COVID hit and this has happened. I need to borrow some money to make the investments. And what happens then is you'll go through the investment process or the lending process, but the lender will get, if you get your RLS loan before the end of December, the lender will get an 80% guarantee from the government. I believe that from the 1st of January until the end of March, that's going to drop to 70%. So I would definitely look into that. If you just Google recovery loan scheme, you'll be able to pick that up. And you know, you can go to, I mean, there are mainstream banks do it. Funding Circle does it. If you want to move faster and don't mind paying a little more interest, Funding Circle is probably the best route. I've done a number of Funding Circle RLS loans and previously CBILS loans last year for clients. And you know, once you've got all your kind of ducks lined up in terms of information, from submitting your application to having money in the bank takes less than 2 weeks with Funding Circle. Okay. So I would definitely look at that.
Thank you, David.
Pleasure. Gabby is asking, where is the best place to find out more about grants? Gabby, can you just put in the chat where you're located? What country you're in? UK, brilliant. So the first place to start is Innovate UK, which is the main UK government grant thing. The other thing you can do is go onto the gov.uk website and type in grants, and it will take you either to Innovate UK or to a list of other grants that are there. The next thing to look at in terms of grants is where geographically in the country you are. So if you're in one of the areas that is perhaps less well economically developed, you know, so let's say in the northeast or in the valleys in Wales or in the islands of Scotland, Liverpool seems not to have much. I would have thought there'll be something for the northwest, Gabby, but I would definitely start with Innovate UK and go onto the gov.uk site. And you could also have a look There are often regional grant advisory agencies. Again, I don't know what the quality of them is, but you can often tap into that through a local chamber of commerce or something like that. Anyone else? Feel free to unmute or drop a question in the chat.
David, I'd just like to say...
Hey, Farouk. Nice to see you.
Hi, how are you, David? Thank you.
Very well.
I want to say what a fantastic range of panelists you've had today, speakers you've had today. Inspirational, educational, informative. I loved Emma's presentation because I dream of meeting founders like that are very clear, are very kind of expressive. And I think I've just asked her, I've just requested her deck to look at, because I'm
brilliant.
just in the process of forming my first fund. And I'd just like to share my experience from going from an angel into a fund scenario is that I reached out to probably over 100 VCs through LinkedIn. Probably 75% of them were women, 25% men. And I just asked them a simple question. I'm in the process of forming my fund. I'd just like to share my fund thesis and my portfolio construction. Can I do this? Would you be open to a call, a discussion, or give me some feedback on where I am? I got a 3% response.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was scary because when I said 75% women, I would have thought I would get at least 15, 20%. Yes, let's talk. I'm very happy to give you feedback. And then my thoughts turned to, well, why would I not get a response? Because every founder says, well, why didn't they reply? Why doesn't anybody think this is worthwhile? And my only conclusion was that, am I seen as a competitor? Am I going to be seen as a threat? Therefore, they don't want to share stuff with me, which to me seemed kind of logical. I don't have an answer. And my advice to a lot of entrepreneurs today is that this is a grueling process. I'm undergoing it from an investor's perspective. From a founder's perspective, it's even harder. And like you say, there is no quick fixes. Like Sarah was saying, there is no quick fix. And this fund is aimed at women and minority founders. So I'm thinking, there's a very definite slant to this. 75 VC women who I asked for help didn't come forth. So there isn't even help coming from the gender that I'm targeting the fund to. So I'm thinking, well, what's wrong with this picture? What's wrong with sharing information or helping me to set up something that's going to be very, very directed towards women and minority founders? So it's being disheartening at times, but I think, as somebody said today, entrepreneurs have to turn up every day. That's the rule of this game. It's tough, it's brutal, and it's made me more determined to say, I think Emma's story today was brilliant. She didn't turn up to this angel meeting, but somebody called her up and said, I was looking forward to meeting you, has invested in her and doesn't even understand Emma's business. And you got to say, God bless those investors, because that's all heart or conviction. And a lot of investment is sometimes it's purely conviction. You really don't understand the nuts and bolts of the business. It doesn't matter. I think you need investors who say, I believe in you and I believe in your team, and I think we'll get there. And any way I can help, that's what I'm going for. Anyway, thanks very much for a really entertaining and informative afternoon.
My pleasure. Great to see you again.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? We've got 6 more minutes. Okay, Emma and Gabby have reconnected on that, so that's good. Would anyone else like to unmute or put a question into the chat?
Yay, hello.
Hi.
It's me.
Wonderful to see you, Olivia.
I know. I can't wait to get back in person. That's going to be
so
That's 2 years ago, because it was pre-pandemic, that event at the stock exchange, and it seems like such a long time ago, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But no, I can't wait. So I was able to jump on from 4 because I had other stuff booked into my diary earlier on. But one of the things that somebody, I think Laura mentioned, that rejection piece about that sort of, and I think as for people who don't know me, I'm a therapist, so I do a lot of work with anxiety, performance anxiety, and I also do quite a lot of work with entrepreneurship and mental health, that kind of mindset. I've been guest lecturing most recently at Bayes Business School about the dark side of entrepreneurship, the mental health side of it. And one of the things that I've noticed is that where, I don't know, that case I mentioned to you a little while ago where, oh, by the way, I'm wearing Cindy Gallup's lipstick.
Lipstick, excellent,
My
excellent.
new lipstick has come out. Our mutual buddy, Cindy
Yeah.
Gallup.
Bossy bitch.
This exactly. So this huge frustration of like watching these very, very unsuitable companies get funding, like those 2 tech bros who just got money thrown at them. They weren't even raising. They got millions thrown at them because they were 2 like white sort of tech bros who had a diversity thing. And then there's other people, like, you know, friends of mine, people I know, clients who are struggling. They are exactly, I think, what Emma was referring to about that sort of that sort of bias that people have. And often it is not even unconscious, often it is conscious bias. You know, I know like Asian people who are like, you know, Stanford, they've got the tech. I'll probably introduce you when we're offline. They've got this amazing like anti-harassment app, and they are struggling to get funding. You know, they are really, and for them, the mindset of watching, like you were talking about earlier on about the systemic problems, they are watching all these other people get millions and billions thrown at them, these insane valuations, and there they are, and they have a genuine product, they have a genuine, you know, startup where there's a need, and they are struggling, and for them, like, so I help them to try and get their heads around it and to keep going, because it can be so hard to get, so difficult to like get, you know, you can get so disheartened, I think, where you
can, yeah.
And I think people do sometimes go into like a freeze trauma response. So, and I have such an admiration for founders because I know what they go through, and I know that I think they are a special breed. And I think that the kind of the frustration and the mental health pitfalls of it as well. I think I was talking to somebody earlier on about some of these founders, like the WeWork guy.
Yeah.
Like 47 billion valuation. It was getting insane. SoftBank were throwing billions at him. Yeah. And it's just like this idea of like, they start to believe their own hype.
Yeah.
And there is this whole thing of other people looking at that thinking, what am I doing? What am I doing wrong? I can't win here. So I'm, you know, as you can tell, I'm really interested in that. And I'm, you know, fascinated by the psychology of all this, because we do, as humans, we read the room and we see what works and what doesn't work. And then, of course, I think that the problem with the Theranos case that's happening now, yeah. I actually featured her in my lecture at Bayes Business School a couple of weeks ago, of like, once again, there is this cult of the founder of like the crazy dropout that disrupts an industry and that won't take no for an answer and throws people into a room and says, make it happen. Well, Steve Jobs did that, but it's okay to like release a buggy iPhone, but it isn't okay to like have a diagnostic equipment that doesn't work. And the thing about Theranos is like how long it went on.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing. And of course the court case is happening right now. So it's fast for those founders that have the vision. And of course you have to be optimistic for them, but also so for them to have their feet on the ground a bit still. So you have to have that slightly grandiosity, optimism, but also you need to keep your feet on the ground. So that balance is fascinating. And so anyway, I'm so happy to be here. And I'm delighted that we'll be back in person, in that lovely room. So yeah,
exactly.
Delighted.
Exactly. Wonderful. Very good. So Maxine, thank you. It was a morning well spent connecting from California. So it was a 6 a.m. start. Very well done. Thank you, Maxine, for joining us. She's an executive and business coach trained by Cambridge University. Very good. So there we are. And Olivia, you should probably put your contact in the chat, just because there may be some entrepreneurs who would be interested in reaching out and
Absolutely, I will do. Yes.
having a chat with you, because you
Yeah.
have.
So any confidence issues is my thing, basically.
Terrific. All right. Well, we're at the top of the hour. I'm happy to carry on if anybody still wants to have any conversations, but I respect that some people may need to make a move. We're still 17 people, which is great. So if anybody wants to unmute, or thanks very much, David and team. Thank you, Antoinette. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you found it enlightening. Does anyone else want to either unmute or pop a question into the chat?
Hi, David. This is Reina DeCosta from
Hi,
Biz Law
Reina.
UK.
Yes.
I'm an entrepreneur and founder, and we provide holistic legal services, which includes helping connect our owner-managed businesses with funding options. So I really enjoyed today's event, and I'm looking forward to the live one as well.
Excellent.
It was lovely listening to all the inspirational speakers, as well as connecting, with the one-to-ones with people like Olivia, etc.
Yeah.
So well done for what you're doing.
Thank you very much.
There's another network as well that supports women founders, and I've attended a couple of their events, and it's mostly tech related. So for our founders who are not tech companies, we have like a link on our website to help them with startup funding, which is more like debt funding, etc.
Yep.
If they can't get equity funding.
Yep, absolutely. Oh, and just coming back to who was it asking about? It was Gabby. So Gabby, is Gabby still on? Yes, Gabby, you're still on. So Gabby, one of the other things, I don't know how old your business is, but there is a thing that is run through the British Business Bank. It's called startuploans.co.uk is a website.
Okay.
And they will lend up to £25,000 to founders of businesses as long as the business is less than 2 years old. So
Okay.
I would also,
That's great.
I would also say, go on to that. I'll put it into the chat so everyone's got it.
That would be great. Yeah, I'm just past a year, so that would be ideal. Thank you.
And yeah, because well, so that should all be one word, startup. For some reason, but startuploans.co.uk, and it's from memory, it's 25 grand and 6% interest, which is pretty attractive. It is a personal loan to the founder to then invest in the business. But if you go onto the website, you can learn more about that.
Thank you, David. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Tell us about your business since you're on.
Oh gosh. So my business is Talk 20s. We're an organization that supports and bridges the gap between full-time education and the big wide world of adult life. So all those life skills that you don't get taught in school. So I'm a former teacher and left the teaching profession to kind of make this happen. And essentially what we do is we have an award-winning podcast, but we also do online courses, webinars, and now in-person events. Now COVID is kind of hopefully in the rearview mirror. Just recently left I used to work in events full time, but just recently left that to focus on the business. There's so many different elements. So just recently left that a few months ago to kind of focus on the business full time. And at the moment, like I can see where I want to go with it, but everything we've done so far is organic in terms of growth, in terms of the podcast listeners and everything. We've never put a penny into marketing or anything like that. And there are 9 million 20-somethings in the UK that we could potentially support. And we just want to get access and be able to let them know what we do and be able to provide support to them. So yeah, I think we're just looking initially for, sorry, you can probably hear my dog running around.
Fine.
We're just looking for initial kind of capital to see us through, and then hopefully investment in the near future as well.
Okay.
So yeah.
Cool. Then I would say definitely check out the startup loans, because that's that's just direct to the source.
Thank you. That's really great. Cheers.
My pleasure. Okay. Anyone else? Any questions?
I have to shoot off, but I want to say thank you for a really great event. I really enjoyed it. It's been fantastic.
Brilliant. Thank you, Emma. It's been great having you, and we'll keep in touch.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all. Bye.
Take care. Anyone else? Otherwise, I will say we can draw today's event to a close. So as T does it, I'll do it as a countdown, but I'll give you 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you at our next event.